stretching 150 miles across the Korean peninsula, lined with electric fences, hidden with over 2 million landmines, and guarded by thousands of soldiers, lies one of the most fortified boundaries on Earth, the Demilitarized Zone, or DMZ. It marks the tense, volatile line between North and South Korea, and has stood near the 38th parallel for over 6 decades. But the story of how this border came to be is one rooted in centuries of foreign influence and conflict. Korea's long and complex history begins with a unified kingdom established in 668 AD. For centuries, it remained independent and earned the nickname, the Hermit Kingdom, due to its deliberate isolation from the outside world, especially the West. However, at the dawn of the 20th century, Korea's isolation was shattered. Caught in the geopolitical tug-of-war between imperial powers, Korea found itself at the heart of the Russo-Japanese War in the early 1900s. By the war's conclusion in 1905, Japan emerged victorious and swiftly tightened its grip over the Korean peninsula. Within 5 years, Korea was officially annexed as a Japanese colony in 1910. The occupation was brutal. The Japanese Empire attempted to erase Korean identity through cultural suppression, banning the Korean language, rewriting history books, and installing puppet rulers. Korean resistance was persistent, yet tragically unsuccessful. Thousands of Koreans were conscripted into Japan's war machine during World War II. And when Japan finally surrendered in 1945, the Korean people hoped their suffering had ended and their nation could be reborn. But Korea's fate was again determined by foreign powers. In the aftermath of World War II, the victorious Allies needed to manage the withdrawal of Japanese forces from Korea. Instead of restoring sovereignty, the peninsula was split into 2 zones of influence. The Soviet Union would occupy the north, and the United States the south. The division was hastily decided. In July 1945, during the Potsdam Conference, 2 relatively junior U.S. officers, Charles Bonesteel and Dean Rusk, were tasked with drawing a dividing line. With little time and limited knowledge of Korea's geography, they chose the 38th parallel. This became the demarcation point under General Order No. 1, which instructed Japanese forces north of the line to surrender to the Soviets and those south to surrender to the Americans. The Korean people, who had yearned for self-determination after decades of colonial rule, were given no voice in this decision. It was a division born not from Korean consensus, but from Cold War expediency. Initially, both the US and the USSR professed their intentions to help stabilize Korea and eventually unify it through free elections. But ideological differences quickly derailed these plans. As the Cold War deepened, so did the rift between the 2 Koreas. In the north, the Soviets established a communist regime, with Kim Il-sung emerging as the dominant leader. In 1948, South Korea held its own elections, resulting in Syngman Rhee becoming president. Both governments claimed to be the legitimate rulers of all Korea. Tensions escalated until June 25, 1950, when North Korean troops crossed the 38th parallel, launching a full-scale invasion of the South. Thus began the Korean War, a brutal, drawn-out conflict that claimed nearly 4 million lives, both military and civilian. The war dragged on for 3 years, until an armistice was signed on July 27, 1953. But a peace treaty was never finalized, leaving the 2 Koreas in a perpetual state of war. As part of the armistice, both North and South agreed to pull back their troops approximately 1 mile from a new boundary, the military demarcation line. This buffer zone, 2.5 miles wide and 150 miles long, became the DMZ. At the heart of the DMZ lies the Joint Security Area, JSA, in Panmunjom, often referred to as the Truce Village. It is the only location on the peninsula where officials and soldiers from both sides can meet face to face. It was here that the armistice was signed, and to this day, it remains the symbolic and literal midpoint of Korean division. Though termed demilitarized, the DMZ is anything but. guarded by heavily armed forces on both sides, laced with mines, and constantly under surveillance, it stands as one of the most fortified borders in the world. Despite the danger, many have risked their lives attempting to cross it. Most North Korean defectors choose the longer but less perilous route through China. Since the Korean War, an estimated 300,000 people have fled the north, often making treacherous journeys across multiple countries to reach safety. A rare and daring few have attempted to cross the DMZ directly, though many have perished in the attempt. Tensions at the border have occasionally erupted into violence. Between 1966 and 1969, a series of deadly skirmishes claimed the lives of more than 600 soldiers from North Korea, South Korea, and the United States. This period of heightened conflict became known as the Second Korean War. During the 1970s, defectors revealed another threat: underground tunnels. According to reports, Kim Il-sung had ordered the construction of infiltration routes beneath the DMZ for use in surprise attacks. So far, 4 such tunnels have been discovered, though South Korean authorities believe as many as May 20th exist. Beyond military threats, psychological warfare has long played a role in the stalemate. Both Koreas used propaganda broadcasts, blasting music and political messages across the DMZ through loudspeakers. Balloons carrying leaflets were floated over the border, trying to sway minds and morale. In 2004, both sides agreed to halt these tactics, though occasional flare-ups have reignited these efforts. For decades, progress toward peace seemed impossible. But in 2018, history took a hopeful turn. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un met with South Korean President Moon Jae-in at the DMZ, the first time since 1953 that a North Korean head of state had stepped into the South. Their meeting took place in the Joint Security Area, on the southern side of the border. Images of the two leaders shaking hands and crossing the line together sent waves of optimism across the world. It was a symbolic moment, one that briefly rekindled dreams of reconciliation. Despite occasional diplomatic overtures, the DMZ remains a stark reminder of unresolved conflict. A legacy of foreign intervention, ideological rivalry, and civil war, it has come to define modern Korea more than any border ever should. It separates families, prevents reunification, and stands as a cold monument to the deep scars of the 20th century. Yet, within its guarded silence, there is also a strange beauty. Nature has flourished in this no-man's land, untouched by human activity for decades. The DMZ has inadvertently become a de facto wildlife sanctuary, home to endangered species and lush ecosystems. The Korean Demilitarized Zone may have been born of war and division, but its story is also one of resilience, hope, and the enduring desire of a people to one day be whole again.